No worries. Go around me.
So we loved this, hybrid model, but it does take a little bit of effort to make all the screens and realities match.
Hey guys, listen, we're just testing my blood pressure. We are now live on all different, the YouTube channel, Facebook. We've said the Pledge of Allegiance, so.
Thank you.
Would you like me to promote the first speaker for Open Podium?
Sure, and yeah, go ahead. While you're doing that, I'll explain the Open Podium.
Sure.
Is first 15 minutes of the meeting, which it's already gone into almost 10. But so when you do speak, when you bring Nicholas in, we treat it like a public hearing where we'll give you 3 to 5 minutes to speak, and say what your concerns are. And if we can answer the questions and help you out, we'll do that.
I'm not seeing it live on Facebook right now. Up there, it just kicked on.
There we go. Can we do that? I didn't know that.
Okay, Mr. Agrippino, you are in the meeting. You could actually use your camera if you wanted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't think my camera's working actually. So it's plugged in, but you can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, awesome. Well, first off, thanks for having me, everyone. I guess I'll start with a little quick introduction. My name's Nick Agrippino. I'm a certified public accountant who's had the pleasure of working with a couple of the New York State cannabis medical license holders. I'm also involved in an association called the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association. I work with members and businesses that currently produce hemp and CBD products, but a lot of them are prospective license holders moving into THC-based products. What I want to talk about today is I want to first start off with just a brief overview and kind of start the discussion at the town level about opting out of retail sales and what this means. I know that these discussions have already started to happen at the village levels, but I feel that the more discussions that we have, the better. And then I also just want to give a brief overview of my stances on the subject and hope this kind of serves as a good starting point for things that I think need to be discussed. So first off, what does opting out mean? It's important for people to understand that opting out really isn't opting out. We're not really talking about the legality anymore. Opting out really only prevents the ability for businesses to sell in the jurisdiction or open up an on-site consumption facility. So this would essentially be the same thing as kind of a bar/lounge where cannabis can be consumed. Residents will be able to possess cannabis, smoke anywhere that tobacco use is permitted, and even be able to grow an allowable amount at their own home for personal use. And we could even see the potential for commercial growing on farmland. My general stance is, let's talk about the negatives here for a second, as I've kind of heard plenty of valid concerns from people I've spoken to. Underage use and driving while intoxicated are big ones. I don't feel that opting out will solve any of these problems. The fact really is that they already exist today. All that opting out would really do for us is foregoing tax revenue that could otherwise be used to address these issues. In my opinion, I think that we should start to treat cannabis like alcohol. Now, please don't take that as me indicating it is the same as alcohol, because in my opinion, alcohol is way worse in basically every category. But for argument's sake, we can put it on the same playing field for the moment. Really, when talking about cannabis, I would really urge everyone that, if you're thinking about a negative stemming from cannabis, that you ask yourself if you're treating the concerns the same dealing with alcohol. The Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, that's what got passed, legalizing the use and eventual sale of cannabis, is attempting to address the issues of having a black market. I'm sure we've all heard the horror stories of fentanyl-laced drugs, black market vapor cartridges, which can cause serious health problems. This is going to be a very highly regulated market, and for good reason. So a lot of that is, focused on preventing those things that already exist today. You're talking about extremely secure businesses that are going to need cameras, internal inventory tracking, and ID policies ensuring that underage individuals aren't purchasing products. What I'd like to do is, instead of talking about opting out, let's start to talk about more productive things that we can do in the meantime. Fortunately, we're not going into this blind. We're now the 16th state to legalize it at the adult use level, and we have the opportunity to learn from potential mistakes that have happened. For instance, our neighbors in Massachusetts, Pittsfield, Massachusetts. It's a very close town on the border, very similar in geographical size to Manlius, a bit more populated. Now has 6 dispensaries in the jurisdiction. So I would kind of urge everyone to, I think that we should have some real personal interactions instead of maybe what you might read as far as, potentially biased data on the internet. And, maybe we can speak to the police chief in Pittsfield and, see what's happened in the 2 years since legal sales have started there. We can talk about other issues as far as potential zoning things in our community. We can talk about safety issues and furthering underage use prevention methods in our school system. In summary, let's stop debating and address the issues of concern in our communities today. Lastly, I wanted to offer myself up as a resource, not only to the board, but to anyone in our community. I've read the MRTA in its entirety and will be monitoring regulations that haven't been released yet. If I can't answer a specific question, I can likely find the answer within my networking pool. And just want to end off by, again, expressing my appreciation of, letting me speak, and hope that this is helpful in starting these discussions that need to be had.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. That's a good overview. And I happen to have the MRTA right in front of me. So we're learning about it, and in fact, this is a good introduction to it. Some of the board have expressed concern and interest about when we're going to discuss it and what we're going to do about it. And so I've asked our attorney, Tim Ferteski, to address the act a little bit about what our responsibilities are as a town board and how they differ from the village. There are differences there. But not that we want to make any decisions this evening, of course. We want to have conversation going forward, just as Nicholas has pointed out, and have a real good, honest discussion about pros and cons, as he mentioned. And I know, John, you and I spoke about that, and one of the...
Yeah, I watched another town, I think downstate, they had, rather than having kind of a Wild West type situation, they had 2 experts, one pro, one against. And I thought it was a great way to learn a lot of information really quickly. And I do think they had planned to do a public hearing after that. And I think that model would make a lot of sense for us. We could have, whether it's Nick or someone else, and maybe someone to advocate on the other side, to just kind of have a discussion for maybe 15, 20 minutes. That way we can ask questions, we have experts in the room, and then ideally at the end of that discussion, we schedule a public hearing for the next meeting or the meeting after, and then hear from the residents and see, what their take on the whole situation is.
Yeah, I think that would be a wise move. Tim, did you want to just give us a little overview? I know we talked about it.
Thanks.
I'm
No,
sorry,
I
Heather.
appreciate it. I was
it's
the
like
corner
Zoom.
of your
I'm
eye.
used to seeing everybody there, and now I got to turn my head.
I know. I'll be brief. I'll
Go
just
ahead.
say thank you, Nick, so much.
Yeah.
Based on what you've both just said, I think it's really important also to sort of highlight what Nick said at the beginning, that we don't have a baseline of general understanding about what's before the towns.
Mm-hmm.
The coverage that's happened in the local media has not served to make it clear what is already legal and happening,
Yeah.
and what responsibilities the municipalities have, and what options they have, what recourse they have if they have an overwhelming sentiment from the people, or they believe it's in the people's best interest
Right.
in their representation
Mm-hmm.
to change things. So I was really surprised that some municipalities have jumped on and talked about some sort of concept of a referendum, because that's not what we're talking about. That's not the that's not really what's in front. As I understand it, and maybe Tim can tell us, because I think it would be great to have that conversation. I just want to make sure we have a baseline of understanding before that session, so that we're not starting from the very beginning. As I understand it, Tim, we have a responsibility to tell the state simply if we don't want commercial sales, and that means we don't want any of the revenue that comes from the entire county, or if we do not want, or if we do not want like a restaurant license, a lounge license, basically, use, and consumption. On-site, right. So, and this is not a question of where things will be smoked. All the same rules around, like tobacco, around whether it's close to a school or a house of faith. Those things all still apply.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is that correct then?
But, yeah.
And we have to tell them by December.
Yeah, so I think Mr. Agrippino gave a good overview of what the law says in terms of the responsibility of the town. The town has, if the town does nothing, then marijuana will be allowed in the town of Manlius after January 1st. On-site consumption would be allowed, and distribution would be allowed after January 1st.
With licensed folks.
Yes.
With license, yeah.
Distribution.
We don't get involved in the licensing. We wouldn't be involved in the licensing at all. The only thing we could do, the only things we could do would be to opt out of both or either. So if we say we don't want on-site consumption in the town of Manlius, we can opt out of that and not allow it in the town. Or if we say we don't want distribution in the town of Manlius, we can opt out of that. Or if we say we don't want either of them, we can opt out of that. Yes, we forego the sales tax that would come along with it. The one thing we can do is a municipality, of course, has the right to determine time, place, and manner issues as it relates to zoning. So, like any other business, we can determine what zones we think this, if we choose not to opt out, and we allow, and we talk in double negatives, because that's how the law is actually written, and it's confusing. But if we choose not to opt out, then we, this board would then have to determine where, time, place, and manner. Those are the things we can regulate. What zones would we allow this? When would it allow it to happen? Where would we allow it to happen? But once somebody is licensed and we don't opt out, we can't prevent them from operating in the town unless we say, in this zoning, residential R1, we're not going to allow any of the businesses or on-site consumption. That doesn't mean that somebody can't grow it in their home, because that is already allowed under this law. The one little wrinkle is that if this town chooses to opt out within 45 days of that local law passing, which has to pass by the end of this year, somebody can pass a petition, and it's subject to referendum, meaning that they can pass a petition, and if they get 10% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election to sign a petition, then it would go up to a referendum to the people of the town of Manlius, and they can determine whether or not they want to void the opt-out provision or the local law.
There are quite a few double negatives.
So-
So it's not just it's going to be on the ballot. It's
No.
quite a process.
Yes, they would have to pass petitions to allow, assuming we opted out. If we don't opt out, then
Can they do the same process to make it so that we do opt out?
no.
Okay.
A quick question for you, Tim. You mentioned the gubernatorial election. Now, I've heard the villages seem to think it's the village elections that,
Well,
is
okay,
it
so
different
there's
for
a
village?
difference, yes.
Okay.
All right, so as you may have heard, the villages of Fayetteville, Manlius, and Minoa have come to the conclusion, I think, I don't know if they voted on it or not, that they want to put this up for referendum within the villages. They are allowed to do that under Home Rule Law 24, which allows villages to forego the petition process if it's subject to permissive referendum in the village, and the village board on its own motion can determine that we aren't going to collect petitions, we're just gonna go straight to referendum. We don't have that option in the town of Manlius. Towns don't have the option of putting up a mandatory referendum or a referendum without the petitioning process. And it's very complicated, because there's a separate section of town law, I think it's Article 7, that deals with what's called permissive referendums, which is different than the home rule law permissive referendum.
Right.
But this, the MRTA, references the home rule law. So that's why they'd have to follow that process and not town law Article 7.
Thank goodness we have Mr. Petruski.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
very, very complicated.
Yes, it
But,
is.
but
It is.
in the end, if the town board does nothing,
Right.
then marijuana would be able to be sold in distribution facilities and on-site consumption would be able to take place. There is a question in my mind, there's a legal question as to if we don't regulate time, manner, and place, whether or not we could prohibit them in a commercial or a residential district, because we're not allowed to have businesses in a residential district. So our zoning, I would argue, already prohibits a business.
Yeah, I would
and-
say it's a commercial
Yeah,
business, so it
but
would only.
how about an on-site consumption?
Yeah. Then
Nobody's paying anything for the on-site consumption, it's a place to go, they're probably selling things in there, I
Yeah.
imagine, I don't know, never been to
So
one.
it's probably in our best interest
Yeah.
as a municipality, if we wanted to opt in, or not opt out rather.
Yeah, right.
That we should, if we should craft exactly how we want that to look. So just
Yeah.
defaulting to
Yes.
allowing it is not in our best interest.
I agree, at the
Yeah.
very least, there needs to be a discussion about time, place, and manner.
Yeah.
What makes sense in the town of Manlius, where does this make sense? What times does it make sense, all those types of things.
Oh, and also I do think it's important to talk with the chief. I was gesturing as if you were there, the chief, and to talk with. I thought that was a great suggestion that Nick made. Pittsfield is different because it's sort of, it's a different. I mean, Pittsfield is an interesting. I don't know if it's totally the same, maybe the same size, but it would be interesting to hear what their experiences were, because I know there's a lot of anxiety around how to, look out for folks who might be intoxicated who are driving,
Right.
et cetera. But that's a larger issue that the state is taking on.
That's exactly right.
And I understand that the license body is also going to be very keen to make sure that they're not offering too many licenses in one zone. But at the same time, how effective something like that is, again, I'm glad we're not number one out of all the states, having
Yeah.
a track record of 16 other states.
I'd like to hear from the school districts.
Yeah.
And we've heard a little bit from the chief, but I'd like to hear about all the law enforcement agencies from the county, the state, certainly the school districts. I think the medical community would have a huge input, and also the chambers. What impact this would have.
More businesses.
Yeah, because there are two businesses
So,
right now in the
anyway,
villages.
I just think there's
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation.
a
left.
lot of
Yeah, it
conversation.
really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but
I
that
think
was-
what's most interesting about it to me is that even in having discussions with entities like the school districts in our community, there is, I think, the knowledge in the school district that this is already happening. Kids are already smoking weed. It's not like now they're going to start. So I think that it's a discussion to have kind of with the knowledge that this isn't new. We're not like entering this into the community more. How do we regulate it? How do we create a safe environment for those kids? Perhaps we don't allow them to have a dispensary in the parking lot at the high school. I think that's worth our time in terms of discussing.
A lot of that too is
It's
baked
already
into
through
the
the
law. And I think a really important point too is any of our surrounding municipalities could opt in. And so what we would be saying is we want you to drive to DeWitt to go buy your stuff and then come back to Manlius.
Yeah.
Right, they're gonna be able to get
Or we
it
want
somewhere.
that delivery service that has
Yeah.
a license, right, and do it to drive to your driveway
Yeah.
and sell it to you in your neighborhood driveway.
Yeah, and then we're starved of any of the,
The
the revenue from those taxes to do whatever we want to do. So we're still going to be combating the problem just without money.
Yeah, so the school districts and the police, and the only entity we would probably not need to talk to at that point is the chamber, because we would have limited their economic development.
Well, I think, again, I think there's a lot more to discuss. And
Yeah.
Tim, thank you for that overview.
Yeah,
That
thank
was
you.
excellent. So we'll have further discussion. We'll get between ourselves, have some
The key is the local law needs to be passed by the end of this year.
this year, right?
Once you opt out,
Yep.
if you
If
opt
you
out,
opt out, yeah.
you can always opt back in. If you don't opt out, you can never opt out.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Yep.
So if you don't opt out by the end
That's
of this year,
interesting, too.
Yeah,
your
that is
decision is
interesting.
made
Aware of that.
for the
That's
future.
interesting.
And it makes sense because we
We don't
wouldn't
wanna
want to
flip-flop it back
encourage
and forth.
businesses to start
And then
and
throw 'em
grow.
out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sorry, now
Sorry,
and say,
no.
sorry, we're gonna opt out.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's the concept behind
I see.
the statute.
Good. All right. Very good.
So we
Well,
have
thank
another
you.
person.
Yeah, I know. I'm working my way to that. That's why I was sort of trying to wrap it up here a little bit. So, but again, thank you, board. That was
Hot
excellent.
topic.
Tim, of course, too. Oh, it is, yeah. Burning topic. So,
Was that pun intended?
yeah. So, next we have Carol Lockwood, who lives on 4853 Troop K Road in Manlius. And she would like to talk with us about, to bond a water project, actually water district, over on Apple Tree Ridge and Armstrong Road. There's 3 neighbors, herself, William McGinnis, and David Thames, if I'm pronouncing that right. And we did, Carol and I did have a conversation, we were just talking about how long ago, it was like last July or August when this first came up, and I actually started a file on it, So, Carol, if you'd like to go up, there's a podium right over there. Make it official, and you can present us your thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time this evening. As Mr. Theobald said, the 3 neighbors who live where Armstrong Road, Apple Tree Ridge, and Troop K come in, we are the only neighbors in that area that are not on municipal water. The neighbors on the Armstrong Road, there are hydrants that run there. Mr. McGinnis has drilled several wells, and his wells keep caving in because of the silt, and the water quality is quite poor. Mr. Tennis and his wife also drill wells. They have terrible sulfury water. And our home, my husband David and my home, have a shallow well that's actually on the McGinnis property that has run dry several times. So we are asking the town to essentially bond this tiny water district for the 3 of us and put it on our taxes, because it's rather costly for homeowners to pony up that cash initially. It runs in like the $75,000 range for this to occur. I started last March with Aqua and spoke to some people there, and I have all sorts of maps and contracts and whatnot from Aqua, but their suggestion was, well, go to the town and see if the town would be willing to set up a water district. Aqua was very accommodating. They even did additional rock tests, he calls them, to see if the estimate that they gave us really contained real numbers, because as they start to put in the pipes, if they hit giant rocks, it incurs more expense. And so they did rock tests all down Apple Tree Ridge, and he does not believe that they are going to encounter any substantial rock that would increase the cost. So I sent Mr. Theobald a letter last August requesting that the town bond the project, but I don't know that that was what I was supposed to do. The 3 neighbors collectively really want this to happen and have done a lot of legwork, but don't know what the next steps are. And each of us has spoken to different people in the town. So I just thought it would be helpful if one of us came before you as a group and asked the question of, what do we do now? We've been told we need a petition. Do we need to petition the town, and is there a form, and are we going to need a lawyer? Even though one of us is a lawyer and it's not me, we would prefer to just handle this without additional cost.
This is you right off Troop K here?
Yeah, the hydrant would be off of Armstrong Ridge. I live on the corner of Troop K and Apple Tree.
Right.
May I come over and
Yes,
point
that would
on
be
your
lovely.
screen? My home is right here.
Okay.
Mr. McGinnis and his wife live there, and David Temis and his wife live up here. And the hydrant that we would tap into is here on Armstrong. So they would come down Apple Tree Ridge to here, and then it has to cross over to my side of the road. And then each homeowner would be responsible for hiring some master plumber type person to then hook into that.
And the rest of these homes have water?
All these homes have, they're all on municipal water. The ones down, this is called the private road.
Okay.
They tap into water off Stanwood, but
Okay.
it doesn't come down to where Tennis is or where I am.
You're like in
And-
this little water desert over there.
Yes.
So I'll be your contact person.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Sarah is our water
You're a water woman, okay.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Tim then. So say this water district gets created, this baby tiny water district gets created, and these families are able to connect, and they sell their houses. That responsibility stays with the house. Great. Okay.
Right, so we can't abscond with the water. And I.
And Carol, I know the numbers.
At your June
Yeah.
meeting last year, you agreed to the 2 proposed hydrants
Right.
that I just
Mhm.
mentioned.
Yep.
So some of that work's been done.
Yep.
Oh, that's
So-
great.
Yeah.
So I've got my pen, my paper, I'm ready to take notes on what has to happen next.
Do you want to give her an order?
Sure. So
It's hard to-
hiring an attorney is not necessary. Hiring an engineer though is probably.
Okay.
Yes, engineers are much more important than attorneys. Just ask them and they'll tell you.
Even though Aqua has done all of the legwork
Well,
for us.
you need a professional to prepare what's called a map, a plan, and a report.
Right.
The map will identify the boundaries of the district. The plan will determine how much piping you will need and where it's got to go and how it's got to connect. The report itself will outline the costs of the plan.
I have all of that from
That's
Aqua.
great.
Oh, good.
Okay, if you have it from Aqua, that's fine. If you have a map, plan, or report, that has to be attached to your petition. So in this case, you're talking about 3 houses,
Yeah.
which you get all 3 of them to sign your petition.
Mhm.
That's more than 50% of the assessed value of that district.
Right.
So that's all you need.
Yes.
So how many? 3?
3.
Okay.
The ultimate question, though, and this is why you need an engineer, the ultimate question is going to be what's the cost going to be, and how is it going to be bonded, and what's the bonding cost over a course of time, and whether it meets the threshold or is above the threshold that the controller allows.
Right, and I talked with Doug Miller
Yep.
about that in great detail. I got that information from
Yeah.
him.
Good.
Yep.
So
He gave you a summary of costs. I know that.
he did, and then he redid it with a little bit, with a correction. But
Right,
yes,
right,
he
right,
did give me that.
So,
Is he?
So
our
Doug Miller is
engineer?
not, so Doug Miller would not be your engineer.
Right.
He was the town's engineer.
Yeah,
You'd have to hire your own engineer to
Yeah.
do that. He can help you, we can give you ideas, like I'm giving you advice, legal advice, but I'm not giving it to you.
Appreciate it, yeah.
I'm just providing it as a general
Yep.
proposition.
right.
But yeah, an engineer would be able to do this, they do them all the time,
Are
and.
they, like, is there a special type of engineer? Like, are they called
No.
civil
Yeah,
engineers?
yeah, civil,
mechanical
yeah,
engineers?
any civil engineer would be able to do this.
Mhm.
And David Temps is an attorney, isn't
He is,
he?
yeah.
Okay. I'm sure he knows engineers that might be involved and that might be able to help you on this.
Would it be like a BNL type of
Yeah.
thing?
Yes,
You could ask Aqua too to.
yeah, Aqua would be a
great.
great, actually, it's a great suggestion. Ask Aqua who they use to do map plans and reports.
Right.
And it's not this wouldn't be a very complicated map plan and report. It'll be a very simple one.
And you've done so much work already, it would
Yeah.
be very simple
Yeah,
for somebody
I might
just to go through
actually,
it.
you know, like Patrick Sherlock, PE engineering manager. with
Oh, I know,
PE.
yeah, he's with Aqua, I believe, right?
Oh,
Isn't
he's
Sherlock?
with Aqua.
Yeah, he's with Aqua, yeah.
So we just need an independent person
An
to review it.
independent, not
Yeah.
Aqua, not town.
Yes, you need an independent
Yeah.
engineer to help you through this process.
Gotcha.
And,
Distance isn't that far either.
No, it's really
Well,
not.
And,
Threshold.
and they would know what to do, so I call up, Acme Civil Engineering.
and say you're interested in creating a water district.
Water district.
There's 3 members, there's gonna be 3 homes in the water district. And they're gonna say, you know how much that's gonna cost you?
Yeah.
Say, that's gonna be very expensive for 3 houses and,
Yeah.
the cost of the infrastructure itself is going to be expensive. But if you've already figured out all those numbers and you guys are okay with it, then
Then it's up to the comptroller.
then it'll be up to the contract. I think the comptroller's numbers in the 900s.
900, yeah.
Right. and
A
this
year ago it was
came in-
912, I don't know if it's still there or not.
Yeah, this came in right around there, maybe a little bit.
Okay, and if you're a little bit over, it doesn't necessarily mean the comptroller's office.
Especially with such a small
Yeah.
district.
Wait, what is the amount?
So I think
917, something like that.
it's in the 900s. It used to be in the 600s.
900,000?
No, $900.
And
Oh,
this map
yeah.
report,
I was
and
like,
that
that's
plan and report goes to whom?
You would get your petition and you would attach the map plan and report.
And what is the petition?
It says, we, the residents of
Blah, blah, blah.
whatever,
blah, blah,
here would
So I
desire to.
We got an example here.
Yeah.
And this is good call for Sarah.
Yeah,
Just
this
in
is,
the-
it looks just like this.
Yeah.
It's like one page, you sign the back, and it's not a huge deal.
Is it a form that you folks make? or
But this happens to be another water district we're gonna talk about later today, but
So-
it's not complicated. It's
Is
like-
this petition,
Understood, okay.
this is a document that's probably on our website, right?
Yep.
So you might find this
That
version of
document.
this document on the town's
And the map
website.
plan and report for this other thing that you could see.
It's the Salt Springs Water District.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, wink.
Yeah.
It's actually it's right actually linked to today's agenda.
It might be on the agenda for
It is.
tonight's meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you. I know you are really extending yourselves and I appreciate it.
No, this is what we're here for.
I don't want,
Literally.
I don't want to give you the impression, so there's 2 ways to create a water district. The easier one for you is the residents.
I think
passing
they're gonna
petition.
get 50%.
Yes, I think you're gonna get 50%. I just, Google map plan and report or petition for
Yeah,
map plan and
okay.
report and
And
it'll
I'll
come up.
get
Or
the
you can-
boilerplate
but
stuff that I.
We're
got.
not the ones that are doing the petition. You are gonna be the
Yeah,
one
we
doing it.
petition, but we petition you.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the engineer and the petition that we write will be written to the town.
Correct.
board. And the map plan and report will be prepared
Will
for
be
the
the
town
addendums
board.
to the petition.
Addendums.
And you're gonna explain, that's gonna explain to the people who are gonna be paying for this water district, what exactly you're doing and how much it's gonna cost them.
And so over the course of the 30 years, how much each homeowner is gonna have to own.
That will be in the map plan and report. So the engineer essentially does all the math and tells the board, this is how it's gonna work. Okay.
But
And if
mean,
you wanna hire an attorney, but you don't
You
need.
got a neighbor. Very good.
Well, thank you for
Thank you,
bringing
I
this.
feel like
Carol.
you checked something off your list for today.
We're-
Yeah.
I know, I feel like, whoa. that's-
You were sort of just stuck. You've done almost everything you
Yeah,
want to
we
do.
have,
so,
and we're just
yeah.
stuck, and so this will get us unstuck, and maybe, if not this year, soon.
Mhm.
I won't have to take my showers in my barn with my horses, because that's on a different well.
Thank you
House
very
well
much.
runs dry.
Infrastructure
So-
week over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
for
Carol.
your time.
Good to meet you.
Thank you too.
Before we move on, we do have, well, he's not on the open podium, but I was just pointed out to me that we have an Eagle Scout in the room. John Cardello, I believe, no?
I'm Eagle Scout, yeah.
Not yet, working on it. You're working on it? All right, and so I wanted to recognize you today, John. Do you have something you'd like to say real quick? Or are you good?
You can tell us about your project. But you've got to
Yeah,
come
which, I don't know
up
which troop you belong to.
I'm in troop 152, at IT Church.
Heather, you can look up there and see.
Yes, stay here. You don't know I was gonna do this, do you?
My Eagle project is it's located at Green Lakes. I'm going to be repairing a community garden of some raised
Nice.
plant beds.
Yeah.
And this is for a Eagle required merit badge, citizenship in the community.
Yeah.
I've got to take notes on a board meeting.
Okay. If you need me to sign anything or any of us, if you wanna hang around that one.
Well, at least you have video proof.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Very
were on the
good.
live stream, so they could tell you were here.
And once you, I know once you do receive your award, which I'm sure you'll become an Eagle Scout, notify us. I'll make sure that we get a nice proclamation on your behalf.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
All right?
Really appreciate that.
All right, very
Thank
good.
you, John.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
joining
much.
us.
Thank you, John.
And where
Good
will
luck.
your garden be located?
Yeah.
Or raised beds, where will they be?
Oh, it's I'm repairing a garden at it's at Green Lake State Park.
Yeah,
It's
but where is it?
it's okay. So at the front entrance, there just past the booth, there's a parking lot, and down the path from the parking lot, there's a fenced off area
Oh, yeah.
that
Cool.
like the disabled and elderly communities use.
Oh, okay.
Great.
So,
Thank you very
That's
much.
nice.
Good luck
Thank you for
to
doing
you. Thank you
Very
for
good.
coming.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, and now we can move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes of April, well, we have 2 minutes to approve, April 28th and May 12th. So we'll
Mr.
do them-
Supervisor, I'd gladly make a motion to approve the minutes from April 28th.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye. And
Opposed?
I'd also like to commend Allison and her staff for getting those done.
Yeah,
Voluminous.
right. So now we'll have to do May 12th, is the next one.
And Mr. Supervisor, I'd be glad to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And any discussion, I forgot to ask.
I'll abstain,
Oh,
supervisor,
yeah,
because I
okay.
was not in attendance
Yep,
today.
okay, very good. Approved or carried, I should say. And now we have item 5, which is the approval of the abstract.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to move abstract number 10 in the amount of $87,765.92.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Carried. Very good. Okay, moving right along. All right, we're on the Salt Springs Water District. 4 meetings in a row, I think, we've had this come up. And tonight, I'm going to ask Sarah to explain a little bit about the petition process and discuss the bond resolution as well, which I know you all have seen that in the map plan report and so on. So it's all yours, Sarah.
So thank you. As anybody who's been following this knows, we've discussed this project for several meetings now, so I'm not going to reiterate the whole project, but this is the Salt Springs Manlius portion of the Water District. The map plan and report has been submitted and is attached to the agenda. It's quite voluminous also. And then there is a petition component of it, which, I don't know which way the camera goes. So this is the actual petition. Includes all the documentation. So anybody signing the petition can read the whole report before signing their name to it.
Right.
These will be here. Each clerk has their own because they have to witness the signatures. So when you stop in, whichever clerk comes to you will bring you the binder. You can take as much time as you want to review it, sign your name, and then that person will witness your signature as having been, that's who you signed it with. And we do encourage the people, and everybody who lives in the potential district is aware that they live in a potential district. We will be notifying them that the petition process has started after this meeting today to let them know that they can come down and sign it at the clerk's office here at Town Hall during regular business hours. We also have another binder created to permit volunteers interested in supporting the Water District to take it and witness signatures at people's homes. If they choose not to come to Town Hall or they're not available during the day, there'll be another way to do that. So we do want to make sure this is available to people. And our goal is to have all the signatures collected by the end of June, because the assessment rolls change July 1st, and we need to be able to base it on 50% of assessed value. So we're hoping to do it on the assessment that currently is. So that is the process. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to call the clerk's office. The clerks have all been briefed on this process coming and are ready to accept people coming down to review the documentation and decide whether or not to sign a petition which will permit the Manlius portion of the Salt Springs Water District to move forward. A similar process, about a week lagged beyond Manlius, will be happening in the town of Sullivan, where the residents of the Sullivan side of the Salt Springs Water District will also be passing petitions in the town of Sullivan.
Sarah, quick question, and maybe it's a town clerk question. On the notary public here, is that done after all the signatures have been witnessed by?
Yes.
These
Yes.
aren't by
No,
the clerk?
it's when the whole show is done.
Oh, I hear.
No, we're witnessing the signatures, and then a notary is going to certify our signature.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I see. All right. Excellent. Very good. Any
Does the town
questions?
of Sullivan, theirs has to be completed by the end of June as well, even though?
I think it'd be preferable. I mean, this is just our recommendation. It's not required that it finish. It just makes it easier to calculate the assessment.
Right. And that was part of the timetable, was to try to, we're about a month behind probably.
Because we were trying to get in
Yeah.
so that wouldn't be a challenge.
Right. Okay.
If assessments changed greatly in either town, we'd probably just have to calculate both ways and make sure we met both criteria.
So we don't need to do anything tonight with regard to this, no voting, no nothing.
We
it's just
want to
the fact
just
that-
verify that everybody has agreed that this is the process we're going forward with, and that these are now available starting tomorrow. People can come and sign the petition.
John?
Just for clarification, if someone does not want the water district, there is no action of that person required.
Correct.
Right, they would, yeah.
Yeah,
I just don't want a bunch of people coming down here
That's a
going,
good question.
what am I here not to sign?
Yeah.
So this is an
That's a good-
affirmative process.
Yeah,
It only happens if the majority of residents want it to happen.
right.
If you don't want it to happen, you're off the hook.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I hate to bring it up again, but we did have a little bit of a discussion about the percentages. Tim, I know the 51%, and then there was discussion about whether or not we as a board, explain it.
So the law says that the residents within the district who own 51% of the value in the district sign a petition, then the project will go forward, and that's what the law says. I am not aware of any provision of the law that would allow the town to say, no, we want it to be 75%, or we want it to be 60%. In fact, I think there are case law suggests just the opposite. And case law says there is a structure that the state put in place under Article 12 of town law, or Article 12A, well, in our case, it would be Article 12, that preempts the field from the municipality changing those rules. That's,
Okay.
I'll be the first to admit, I am not an expert in water districts or in special districts generally, but I'm pretty
You will be.
sure. Well, I'm not representing the town in this.
Right.
So I have to continue to say
You
that.
can still be an expert.
Yeah.
But
For this, because we're doing it with the town of Sullivan, I mean, it's all dependent upon all the pieces.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
Yes?
it really is.
Right.
Mhm.
And then two, with the comptroller's
Threshold.
it's 902 in 2019.
we have to get below that, or then there's another process to
Yeah,
get.
then the controller's office would have to approve it.
So
Right.
there's still many.
Yeah, that's another good point, that if, because the point of where we are now is to get to getting funding.
So we can get.
Then we have another year of getting funding.
Okay.
Then we go to the comptroller to say, did we get enough funding?
Okay.
And then we can go forward.
Okay.
Are we able to use any of our federal money that we're receiving for this?
That is still unclear.
That's up for discussion still, I think we talked about that.
well, there's a difference between recovery money that's for infrastructure versus maybe infrastructure money that's coming, that's not approved of federally yet too. So
Yeah, we'll look at all the
Yeah.
different sources and tools. I've learned that through just like electric vehicles and different things. Like you could go this way or this way or this way, just to like strategically what's the best way to get money that's
Mhm.
going to be the most advantageous for the project. So.
And that's gonna be another topic of conversation, I think, that will be having, that even the Association of Town is they're trying to clarify a lot of this still too.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
putting
know
out good info.
if you were in on the meeting that Sarah Cella, I'm sure, destroyed her name, from the Association of Town presented, and there's still a lot of questions on there,
Oh, yeah,
and same with Nikon, trying to get all these things cleared up. So still a work in progress as far as when and how much and who gets it. So
Just
yes, John.
looking at the Facebook comments, just if you can, just make sure you're speaking up
Oh yeah,
and
still
directly into the.
a little louder
camera.
yet. Okay, sorry, very good. And sit up.
It was
straight,
not
right?
directed at anyone in particular.
John is sit up straight.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to item 7. This is a discussion. Actually, this has been going around for years, and we're finally bringing it to the board for further discussion and possibly decisions this evening. We're looking at modification of the 2-year terms for the town clerk and the highway superintendent. So we want to have a discussion about going from 2 to 4 years, and if we do decide how we go about doing that. Our town clerk did send me, and I think we all were on this, right? No, Sarah, you, Rob, and I were on this, and Anu. But what she did was she sent a sheet with all the towns and how many have 4-year terms, how many have 2-year terms, how many are appointed. Most are elected positions. There's only a couple that are appointed for the highway, and one for both. But we do have, I'll count them out real quick here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for both, and one that's just the clerk, and 2 still for the highway. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 for that. Camillus and Spafford have 4-year clerk and 2-year for the highway. So it seems that, the majority of the towns, and I thought, well, maybe it has to do with size, but then I looked at Clay, and they have 2 elected clerks and an appointed highway. So it really doesn't have anything to do with size, does it? So I'm not going to go anywhere else. So we have the town of Tully, Cicero, they're good size. DeWitt, 2 years for both. So unconfirmed. Oh yeah, what Rob remembers here. Town of Lafayette is 4-year term for both, and town of Fabius is 4 for both.
I think Fabius actually added 2 years.
2 years? Okay, all right. Anyway, so who would like to, you want to start that off, Sarah or John? Anyone?
I'll take
Begin with it? Yeah.
So I know been talking to Allison and Rob about this, and we currently have our receiver of taxes on the 4-year term.
Yeah.
And the goal of this would be to bring all of those into sync. And I think I personally am in favor of this because, well, I'm in favor of letting the voters decide, because at the end of the day, we don't get to change these things,
Right,
the voters
that's right,
get to. But I think, especially, and I'm biased because I'm the liaison to the town clerk and the highway superintendent, but what I've seen, and as someone who has run for town clerk previously, these are very professional positions. That being said, they are elected, so anybody could put their name on the ballot and run. But even if that were to happen, the 4 years is going to allow for a plan for building out. We know how quickly a year moves in municipal government. And, when you look at the fact that the councils have 4-year terms, that way we can have these projects that we can look after, or move, push in certain directions for a long enough time, and kind of get that knowledge of how to get things done. And I think that's appropriate for the highway superintendent and the town clerk, especially when you really start to understand how much goes into those jobs. I know neither of them are working a 40-hour week. They have their own staff to manage, and I think this would give a real opportunity to make sure. And this is forever. Whoever's elected, we fairly pretty sure that it's going to be Rob and Allison this year. And really, this is just going to ensure that they have the ability to do that long-term planning and, like working with Allison, bringing technology to bear, the website, could we imagine the process that happened, 5 years ago of getting the town website online if the clerk only had 2 years to make something like that happen? Or, it's really just saying, you have a term that is long enough to have an idea, implement it, and see if it works before you're back up for re-election. And who knows, who takes those seats in the long term. But right now, with Rob and Allison there, being able to look at the next 4 years instead of 2, hopefully will allow for a much more well thought out and planned for plan.
Anyone else want to
Well,
talk
we've
that?
talked about this
Yes.
a number of years.
Oh, yeah,
You know, we've been
yeah.
on board for 12 years,
Mhm.
and Tim, maybe you can explain the process of doing this, because what happened before, I think, again, our highway superintendent and town clerk, they're the best of the best.
That's right.
And it's not, the experience is crucial, and you just can't come in and think you can take over, because realistically, that's not gonna happen. So I think it's so important to sustain these positions, but there is a process, right,
Yes,
Attorney Fortesky?
there is a process.
It's a process for everyone.
There is a
Yeah.
process.
Well, it's timely though, if I remember.
Well, yes, so we were just talking about permissive referendum, which is Article 24, or Section 24 of Municipal Home Rule Law. This is mandatory referendum, which is Section 23, the section just before the permissive referendum. There's certain actions to take place that deal with the structure of government, elected government primarily, that requires mandatory referendum. So if you're going to change the terms, or you're going to change the salaries, you're going to change anything as it relates to somebody who's an elected official, you have to put that to the voters. We would pass a local law that would change the terms from 2 years to 4 years. And then within 60 days, it has to be passed within 60 days of the general election. So
More than behind.
what's that?
More than 60 days before.
Correct.
Right.
So you can't be any less than 60 days, I guess is the best way to put it. So count back from election day, 60 days. Your local law has to be passed before then, but but practically it has to be passed even before that.
It's about
because you have
90
to-
days
yeah,
for the
because
ballot to be certified.
Because you have to set up the whole election process
Right.
also. Not the process, the election process is in place, but the notification process.
So that it would be on the ballot.
So that it would be on the ballot. So we would have to work with the Board of Elections to make sure that that the time
Which is-
frame is all correct.
Why we want to do it over the summer.
Well, and what do you think?
Not that you're on the spot.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I have, you guys know I've been on the state association for quite some time now. And, it's funny, we did a poll last year, the Highway Superintendent Association did a poll. And of the 900, only 380 responded, but there was 122 that actually responded, there were 2-year terms, and 258 were actually 4-year terms. And I agree with John. It's a lot easier for someone who's coming into the job, especially, to take 4 years. I mean, you figure most of your contracts with your unions are 3 or 4 year contracts. Most of your, even when you're doing your budgeting process, you're not thinking always just about this year. It's the year after and the year after that. So certainly your paving projects, they're not year to year. They're 2 and 3 years out. A lot of your drainage projects now, just to get the funding. I mean, we know how it works. So, to get that, it makes it a little bit easier for someone who's a highway superintendent to make it more of a easier process for the highway superintendent. So I certainly, obviously, I would be for the 4-year term. I believe Allison would be for the 4-year term. I'm a little bit farther in on my time than most highway superintendents, but I do believe it's what you're finding across the state is more and more And I think because the technologies are changing, the business end of it, dealing with the big safeties and all the EPA and DEC and all the things that you do, those things take time. And I think to get a plan ahead is certainly a benefit to all the town residents.
Yeah, I'd like to add to one of the things that we haven't really talked about is the fact that, unlike the town board, we're policymakers, you know, and that makes a difference. You know, obviously what they do, and you said it very well, John, is that they are very professional in what they do to make sure the town runs smoothly, you know, whether the highway or just petitions, you know,
Mhm.
even that, you know, and dog licensing, and you name it, it goes on and on. But I think, you know, I think a lot of it, at some point, there was probably some political narrative, you know, where you had, well, like myself, is it, I'll be the only one, or well, the next person will still continue a 2-year term, you know. But it was always like, well, that way, the 3 board members who are every 4 years has someone running with them besides themselves, you know, and you have the highway superintendent and the town clerk and the town supervisor, so that I guess you don't feel left out. I don't know, you know, but, so I think there was some, you know, political juggling around. I think that maybe, but that was a long time ago when that was all decided. And I'm not sure. It looks like, I mean, if that's the case with the Highway Association, I mean, that's a sizable, even though, as usual, not all of them respond. But
Tough group
Hey,
of guys.
tough group of guys, right? So-
1/3 on a survey
That's
is
not
actually
bad.
very good.
Yeah.
That is good. That is good. But I mean, it was pretty strong one way over the other. And I think if now that we look at how the other towns are doing that, I noticed that there wasn't anything there about the town supervisor, but that's okay. You never know with a supervisor, you know.
I was just thinking that if we were doing the other 2, why keep the supervisor too?
Why
They were
keep it?
Well,
Yeah.
the difference between the policymaker versus
I know,
the-
but we're all 4 years.
Yeah. Well,
You know, I feel like 2 years
Well,
isn't enough
that's,
to do
by the way,
anything.
that's odd.
Is it on?
Yes, that your 4-year terms. Generally, it's 2-year term, 2-year staggered terms for, and the town supervisor is, although he is the supervisor, he's still a board member.
Right.
He's always a board member. That's why he gets the vote along with all the board. But yeah, most towns are 2 years.
Yes, there's only a couple. I think Lysander might be, or
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah.
Calling
Van
ourselves
Buren,
out.
Van Buren.
Okay.
I think Van
As someone
Buren
who's
is a
running again
4-year.
2 years after running, it's exhausting. I don't know how you guys have done that.
We pretty much campaign every other year.
I mean, you're just like, as soon as you as soon as you exhale, you're just like right back at it.
But you know, you gotta do the job. That's what it
Yeah.
comes down to, you know. So, but anyway, good discussion. Anyone else wanna add? Go ahead.
Tim, would we have the option of passing it or wording the referendum in such a way that it would include the current
Oh yeah,
terms
right.
on
We
the
did talk
ballot?
about that. Yeah.
So Rob is running for highway superintendent again.
Right.
Would that term then be 2, or would it be allowed to be updated to 4?
We're
If
going.
he's running this year.
Yep.
If you pass a local law making it a 4-year term, my understanding is that would become effective upon the vote of the people.
Oh,
If
okay.
people approve it,
Okay.
then going forward, it's a 4-year term.
Because you're like sworn in and everything the following, that's
In January,
January,
right.
so like the law.
So the law is in effect essentially, yeah.
Yeah, you would pass the local law.
Right.
Then the voters on November 4th, whatever the day is, would decide yes, and they say, yes, we want a 4-year term. On that day, the law becomes effective.
There you go.
So both.
I'll have to verify that, but I think that is how it works.
We'll
So-
make it easier.
So I guess the outcome from this would be to ask you to draft a resolution.
Yeah. Right.
Do
Draft
we
a
want to
local
ask
law.
Allison
Local
to
law.
speak in case she wanted to say anything?
Allison, you want? This is a nice sheet you got me here. This is good.
Thank you. I would echo a lot of what has already been said. I will say, many clerks who switched to 4-year terms emailed me and said 4 years is the way to go. They felt like it allowed them to be effective in their positions. And I think they were also, some of the 2-year term clerks were looking to us to see what happened, and asked if I could let them know. So the percentage of 2-year highway and clerks versus 4-year was substantially different.
Okay. So I guess I asked the board, is it something you want to vote on to have a local law drawn up? Is that how we do it, Tim?
Well, just, you can
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
draft local law,
Draft
I
local
can
law.
do that.
And then we would vote on that.
Yeah, to set a date for a public hearing.
Okay.
because
Oh,
we'd
yeah,
have to-
public
We'd have to
hearing,
have a
right,
public hearing on the
right.
local law.
Okay.
And then if you, after the public hearing, choose to pass the local law, then it's subject to mandatory referendum. Okay.
That's great.
Yeah,
So we
do you
can-
need a
Totally support
motion? Oh, do you need a motion?
No, not tonight.
No.
When I draft the law, I'll have the local law ready for the next.
Okay,
meeting.
and then the next
Okay.
meeting,
So we
we'll
can
set
schedule
the
a
public
public
hearing.
Then you
and
can
all
set
that.
the,
And then
Very good, okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Timing knows everything. It seems like I remember something. So, but Tim will get that.
What's that?
Timing is everything.
Well, it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember something. There was an issue.
I think we
before
have,
we
what are we gonna be,
discussed it.
June? I think we'll have enough time.
So,
I
But
think
we need to also coordinate it
Sure.
with the Board of Elections.
Yeah.
My understanding
Yeah.
is the Board of Elections is 90 days out from the election,
Mhm.
just to get the ballot ready to go.
Right.
So
So that's a practical.
Yeah,
time,
so
as
essentially
opposed to
July,
legal. Yeah.
end of July is our deadline.
And we should have things ready by then, I
Yeah,
think.
well, I'll have the local at the next meeting.
Beautiful,
Thank you.
okay, excellent, very good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we will move on to, Rob made it back in time. Were we out there cleaning up some of the?
We did
Water?
today, actually, and not so much water, actually, a couple trees went down
Oh,
this afternoon, and then we got another burst right after we got those cleaned up, so. But other than that, I just wanna remind the residents that we are started, I'm sorry, we've started into our, summer paving project, so,
Right.
just bear with us, most of them, we're gonna be sending out cards to let our residents know, when and what dates it will be in their area. So hopefully, like I said, we just started today actually and got rained out about halfway through.
Oh, yeah, it did come down.
But, so we'll be into that process here and, we'll go probably right till September.
They were pretty accurate. They said around 1:30,
Mhm.
and it was
Yes,
1:30 when it hit.
absolutely.
I was
It
really
was.
surprised.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know,
It was.
finally they got it right. So, all right, so we'll move on to, Tim, you're up next there on the Sustainability Manlius Public Fund.
Yes,
Accepting
I
this.
am gonna turn it over to Counselor Creasel. She asked me to draft a resolution that would create a publicity fund so that we can, well, actually allow us to collect donations to
Right.
assist a sustainable Manlius.
Mhm.
And the way I think we should do it is through what's allowed under town law, which is a publicity fund to take the money and then set up something where we'd have a separate bank account for that, because we didn't accept gifts, contributions, and donations.
Right.
But I'm gonna turn it over to Councilor.
Thank you, Tim. So, when we were doing Earth Fest, several opportunities for marketing came up to buy ads and do Facebook ads and then ads in the Eagle paper. And we didn't have any money to do it, so I paid for it myself just to promote that initiative. And it wasn't very expensive. But I offered to do it because we didn't have any money set aside, and several members of the committee said, well, can we donate to it? Can we help to pay for it? But we didn't have a mechanism for doing that. So I reached out to Tim to ask if that was something we could do, but we weren't able to. So now going forward, should we pass this resolution this evening, we will be able to collect donations, or people, they will not be tax deductible donations. We are not a nonprofit or a 501c3.
Make that very clear.
Yeah, so Tim did ask if I wanted to go that route, and after having started my own nonprofit 2 years ago, I said, no, thank you. It is quite a lot of fun to start a 501c3.
Right.
So we created this document together. Tim, thank you for drafting this for us. And it will allow us to collect money from people who want to help support Sustainable Manlius' endeavors in whatever way we might choose to do so. So I think that about sums it up.
Does anybody have any questions about the process?
Yeah, I do. I think it's awesome, so I'm all for it. Do you think in the future, say somebody wants to leave land like they would to the Central New York Trust, I noticed that real estate was in the description. They might be more inclined to do it if it were a not-for-profit. Is there a way to revisit the structure of this in the future if we do want to make it a not-for-profit fund or make it attached to a not-for-profit?
So we can't create a not-for-profit corporation. What we can create is what's called a local development corporation, an LTC. Municipalities have the right to do that for the benefit of the town. They can qualify as a 501c3.
Got it.
So
Oh, okay.
if that's something this board was interested in doing in the future.
Thank
Okay.
you. That's really helpful.
But
So
is that-
that's
So
helpful.
in the event someone wants to leave Sustainable Manlius some land, perhaps we create the LTC and go from there.
Would the LDC be specifically for a committee, or would it be like town, like a
It
fund?
would be a
for it?
town, it would be a town.
That's not a bad idea to look into.
It's really an economic development tool.
Yeah.
A local development corporation is really an economic.
I mean, I think that's something that seems nice, but let's see how this works first.
So how is the money managed, Tim? I guess that's one of my
The
questions.
the town manager
Right.
would collect the donations.
Whoops.
Unless it was real estate or personal property
Right.
or cash that was specified for a specific program, we would not, the town manager could not accept that on her own. It would have to come to the town board because there might be a liability associated with that, which the town board can say, thank you for the offer, but we choose not to
So
accept.
we want checks, never
Yeah.
cash if possible.
Yes, right. So, but unrestricted cash can be received by the town manager on behalf of Sustainable Manlius. And we would create a separate bank account for that fund.
So as I'm reading this, expenditures, publicity accounts, sustainable mailing shall be by regular motion of the board, a majority vote, unless the expenditure is less than $250. If the expenditure is less, it can be made by the town manager upon the direction of the town supervisor, and no more than 4 such deposits within any fiscal year can be
The
made.
deposit is wrong. It should be no more than 4 expenditures.
Expenditures, okay,
I thought I changed that.
That was what Ann had caught, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought I had changed that.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, because I kept reading that, but I'm not getting it.
so the purpose of that
Okay, good.
specific provision was to avoid exactly the situation that we fell into with Caitlin, which is we had a town board meeting. We wanted to, after the town board meeting, we wanted to publish this and publish the Sustainable Manlius
right.
Earth Day in the paper, but there was no mechanism to do that because the town board has to approve those expenditures. So here, on an emergency basis, the town manager, with the consent of the town supervisor, would be able to spend for an advertisement.
Oh,
in the
okay.
paper.
Up to $250.
All right, yeah, okay, that
It's
helps.
it's just like, so we're making eye contact because it's just like us asking Peggy to help us get the word out about the survey through the peach jar. We need to have a separate, effort.
But Tim, that's my concern. I mean, this focuses on sustainable manliness, but I mean, that's a fairly new committee. And it's not precise as to exactly what the goals are of this committee yet. And, why couldn't the same process be used like for the recreation department, Rob's department and highway
I know
department?
the police department does use it.
We've tried to get, picnic areas around town hall, there's just so many.
That's what their taxes are doing.
You can do it for, you can
So-
do separate accounts if you want.
But that would be a huge undertaking for management and to handle all these accounts.
I agree. And there may be a day when when we develop those types of accounts, we would want to consolidate them into one and make rules for all of them. I was asked to do this
This
specific
one, yeah.
Well, we
issue.
could, we could go forward and say, oh, it's working for Sustainable Manlius, so say we want to expand it to like the Special Projects Publicity Fund, and everybody who has, in the beginning of the year, puts their budgets forward for what they'd like to, what they anticipate they want to
So
We
you-
can adjust.
Right, I mean,
But-
so many of these
but don't
funds
forget-
are
This is
already
but don't-
donations,
in
this
the
isn't,
budget.
yeah, we
Yeah,
gotta be clear, this is
already
not
in
our
the
budget.
That's right,
Right.
these are
Yeah.
donations,
Right,
so
right,
that we
right.
gotta, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
These are donations to the town, which I've been here for 20 years, it's not like we get a ton of people saying, I wanna donate to the town, and that's how they pay their taxes, right?
Right.
Right.
That's
But
the
you've got a
donation.
fundraiser
And I
on the
think-
board.
So,
Exactly.
so unless you have an initiative to buy picnic tables for behind town hall and say, this is an initiative we want to do. We want to use our publicity fund to get donations for picnic tables. Well, then that would make sense. Let's do something similar to this or merge it into this or do something like this. This kind of just sets the model for the future
We'll
for
see.
people who are willing to donate to the town.
Okay, then
The
you have
PTA.
guidelines with as Chairman, the goals and what you feel the donations would go for, I mean, besides
And when
advertising.
I'm thinking, it's really the donor who's making that decision. They're saying, I'm donating, so you may do this. So,
It would have to be identified
It would have to
in
be
some
something-
manner so that we know
Yeah.
what it would go to.
And then if we don't do that particular thing, what if it can't take place, or what would the repercussions be? Do you give the
Well,
money
I think
back?
that if we were, I saw this fund as a general fund to promote the efforts of the committee. So at any given time, if we had raised, let's say, $500 in April from 5 different people who donated $100, but we only spent 250 of the dollars on marketing for that event that month, then we might use that money later on in the summer to buy stickers with Sustainable Manlius' logo on it to
Okay.
continue to promote the efforts of the committee. So it's a general,
It'll all be
general
identified.
marketing fund
Okay,
to promote the efforts of the committee.
I
It would
think as
include in
long
the
as
committee
it's-
report too, the balance and how we're.
I think as long as
what's
it's
happening with it.
described, Heather, yeah, the reports
Is
and all
there a
that.
maximum contribution? or a
I
minimum
don't think so.
contribution?
It doesn't state here. Or minimum.
Contribute whatever you want. If it's $250 or more, the expenditure, it's coming to this board. So you're going to make the determination
Right.
as to whether or not
Okay.
it's
you're going,
consistent with it.
it's consistent with the sustainable Manlius goals.
Okay.
If we decide it's going to be picnic tables in the future, and the expenditure is more than $250, you're gonna decide if the picnic table is going to be a small one, or a big one, or a black one, or a white one, or a red one. I mean,
Yeah,
those will be decisions that are gonna be made by this board
Okay,
based on what you want to do, and you're elected to make those kinds of decisions.
And I think for this instance, advertising was really the only way to spend that money because we were still all quarantined and everything. But Earthfest could have looked like an event in a park, and maybe the fund would have been used to buy refreshments or have
Yeah,
a
okay.
musician to come.
Yeah, like
all
pay
right.
like the park fee to
Yeah, there you go.
register it, all those
Yeah.
things would be.
Yeah, that would be a little different.
So like promote and support the efforts of the sustainability committee, which is defined, like it's within the purview of sustainability. So I think that's,
Yeah.
it's, I think if it were for all the committees, then it would be more difficult, like who is this money for, what are we doing with this? But because it was created
Mhm.
just for this purpose, I think it's pretty clear what the purpose of the money is for.
I remember when I was a trustee in the village of Manoa, I was in charge of celebrations. We had a celebration budget. It got raided a lot. And it wasn't for always celebrations.
Village
So I
of
think this
Fayetteville.
would be a good
Yes.
way to make sure that it's used for what it's supposed to be used for.
The village of Fayetteville has their beautification fund for
Oh,
all the
yeah.
flowers,
Yeah.
and they,
I guess that'd be
but
something.
that's another concern I have is solicitation. you know,
Would
how-
we be soliciting, or we just let
How
them know
much
we have it?
solicitation
Yeah, we
would
would- I
be
would-
going on, and
I'm gonna share that we have it, because a lot of people had asked for it, so we have a Sustainable Manlius meeting next Thursday, where we'll share that we did create this, so the people who wanted to can now contribute, but we're not gonna be like hitting people up
Promoting it,
once
no.
a month, don't forget to send in your donation,
Door
like,
to door.
yeah, I don't think that that's necessary, it's
No,
more just a
okay.
vehicle for people who wanted to support the efforts of the community, where they have a lot of stake, I mean, these people are very
Sure.
passionate about this.
Yeah, okay.
I think that it is just to keep trust with the town, since the town is sponsoring it.
Mhm.
I think that we could be in a good position to have clarity around the guidelines for all that, so that on the webpage or in just wherever it's being solicited or whatever the information is, all that's there. If I'm giving, here's here's what the town's commitments are around that, and with the law information in there.
Mhm.
And you can say also, here's how you'll find out how it's being used, committee reports. I don't know if we want to commit to something that happens every year, because that might be too much, but saying like at the end of the year, we talk about, here's where you're going to find out about, how it's used.
Well, that would probably happen in the budget. At the end of the year, we'll probably review how much money is in that fund
Right.
and
Yeah.
go over that at that time.
Yeah,
So I
it'll
think
be part of
that's,
the committee
Yeah.
review. Of
it'll be a part of that, like
Yeah.
there's,
And I do-
$1,500. I don't anticipate this being like $100,000.
Right,
pool.
right,
Like,
right.
But since you're doing this and you're leading it now, in order to think about the sustainability of something like this, because it lives on, I do agree that having a philosophy around the solicitation and how we do those things, since we don't do it in other areas, would be good, and making it transparent just on a page, and then we're all aware of it, and
Right.
anybody who gives is aware of it.
And it sets a good precedent, like if we wanted to do it for the comprehensive planning, if people wanted to donate to support our efforts to write a comprehensive plan.
I just want to do the local development agency
Yeah.
so that we can get.
Well, we'll see
real
how this
estate
goes, and
everything.
then
Get
All right,
real
well, I
estate,
think,
yeah.
Elaine, did you have anything?
No,
No, okay. The only
Can I
one that
ask
didn't
about the
speak up,
PBA?
right? Huh?
The PBA gets donations. The Police Benevolent Association gets donations, and
Well, they do solicit.
and they solicit.
Yeah, but the PBA is a
Not
private
for us.
entity.
Separate
that's a
entity,
It's a
yeah.
private entity, it's a public,
Right.
that's the
But it-
Police Benevolent Association.
And then how does it intersect? I mean, we get reports on, there's PBA stuff in our, am I crazy? But I feel like there's PBA stuff in our,
Budget.
there's information about what the, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the
Yeah.
PBA is somehow the revenues for the gifts or
It's a
somewhere.
separate.
It's all separate.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
Mhm.
definitely, oh, yeah.
perfect.
All right.
All right, very good. So,
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution accepting gifts for sustainable Manlius.
With the amendment,
with
With
the
the
amendment
amendment
on
to
the
fix
the
the,
word deposit to
expenditure.
change the word deposit to
in
expenditure
section 5.
in section 5.
Okay,
And I'll second.
all right. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, carried. Very good. All right, nice job, Caitlin. Very good. And next we have, oh yes, Town Clerk Weber, we have, you're up next with the resolution to rescind the temporary suspension of commercial peddler permits in the town due to the COVID-19 pandemic and all the CDC lifting of everything, most everything.
Yes.
So, Allison?
Yeah, so I actually, and just so you know, I have two other very brief items after this that kind of came up after our agenda meeting. But all I'm requesting, it's just a verbal resolution. We don't need a written one. I don't think Tim said a verbal was okay. Just rescinding the previous resolution that temporarily suspended the commercial peddler permits so that those folks can resume the process that is allowed under our code.
Very good. Anyone?
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Who
Yeah.
wants to make? You
Oh, I'll make a
have to do
motion
verbal.
to, yeah, I'll make a motion
Sounds
to.
good.
We need a verbal.
Yeah, make a motion to rescind the temporary suspension of commercial peddler permits in the town.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Do we know what the situation's been in the villages with the permits? Did they do anything similar? Or do we know?
I
Not
don't
sure.
remember. Do you know, Allison?
I'm not sure.
I had some people knocking on my door offering aggressively selling to me pest control.
Oh, I had them too.
yeah.
They
think they were
hit
all over
every house.
And
Well,
now
you're
they
in
can-
you're in the town.
I was in the village of Manlius.
Yeah, no, you know what he did? He was at a neighbor's house. his
That's
house
what
at-
they said. I
So
don't
they-
know that was true.
So we have to talk to that group and let them know that they
Yeah,
were
let
out
it-
of
But they need to
compliance.
apply
Yeah.
for the permit.
They need, yeah, so Allison, I'll give you the name of that company and give them notice, just like,
I
hey,
was like, I'm all
FYI.
set. I just bought this house yesterday. I don't even know if they have pests. And he was like, well, let me just, I was like, for 15
Wow.
minutes, he wouldn't let me go in the house.
It was the
We
same-
are well aware of that group. And our peddler solicitor process is something that we are working on and coordinating. And I will definitely make note of that because they're going to have to come in and get an application. So.
Very good.
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank
I'm glad to hear it.
That's
That was
important.
Be made aware of that.
you. Yeah. Allison, you had a couple more items?
Yeah, I just have two other quick things. First thing is every year the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets completes an inspection on our dog control facilities. They call it the Municipal Shelter Inspection Report, and that is for the CNYSPCA. And then also completes an inspection of the dog control officer. So they go in, they review things, is the shelter sound? Is the drainage adequate? Is there good food and water for pets in their care? And then, is the dog control officer filing the reports properly and things like that? And they completed that in March of 2021. And they gave both of those a satisfactory report. So the SPCA continues to do a good job in that regard.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just briefly bring up, we are clearly going to keep proceeding with hybrid meetings, and I'm doing a little training tonight with Debbie. So I might, yes, Mr. Supervisor, I might come back to the boardroom and Deb might monitor from afar. But we have been working on two different things, and one I want the town board's input on, but I do think that we need to amend our rules of decorum to give some instructions for the hybrid meeting participants. Right now, there are none, and there have been none during this entire process. And the issue with that is we just need to make sure that when folks are logging into Zoom, that they are giving us their name and their address when they're participating in a public hearing or when they're logging in as participants. It's kind of been the wild, wild west in terms of the minutes, in terms of, keeping track of who has attended the meetings. Deb and I have done our very best. We think going forward in the minutes, it'll say Zoom attendees, and then subsequently it will also say in-person attendees. And we're happy and excited to keep pursuing the hybrid meeting, but we just wanted to kind of put a little framework around that. We have had residents come to us and request to know who was in the Zoom rooms. And, if you don't log in under your proper name, we cannot give that information. And I think the laws will also start catching up with that. This wasn't addressed before because virtual meetings was not thought of. I think that is something that will happen. So I just want to start looking at potentially amending the rules of decorum, and maybe I'll draft a little something to put, I'll work with Councilor Deere on that and Tim, and get something before all of you, maybe for the next meeting. It would just be an amendment. Okay. And then the second thing is we're just putting together some information for folks to have so that they can easily see how to attend board meetings and what their options are. If you're an open podium and you attend virtually, if you're an open podium and you attend in person, this is where you can find information and how you can participate.
I think that's a great idea. I'm a stickler for people identifying themselves other than anonymous. So I think we should update the rules of decorum to direct that as
Well, I know we've had that issue sometimes with the Q&A feature.
Yeah.
Where we'll get a question, and it's a good faith question, but we want to say, what's your name,
Right.
what's your address,
and some should be not so nice.
Yeah.
So
I think just making it clear that if you want to participate, I mean, the whole goal is this hybrid solution is to act as if we were holding an in-person meeting,
and
you can participate.
You're signing in. Yeah.
Exactly. You can participate just like you're here.
Yeah.
And if someone went, raised their hand to make a comment, we would ask them for their name and their address. And if they instead said I'm anonymous and started saying something, we would ask them to leave or stop speaking or something like
Get
that.
to use that gavel.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is anonymous here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think this is a classic solution of we are moving as fast as we can, and we just got to clean up after ourselves a little bit to make sure we have rules that reflect the intent.
Very good, Allison. I like your suggestions, and I think we all are in agreement with that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're done. Okay, good. All right. I know the chief did want to come back on. He had something. Oh, there he is. Good. Chief, you're up.
Great. Thank you. Just a few items real quickly. The 3 police officers that we currently have in the academy are all doing well. So I just want to give an update on their progress. We are finalizing the Memorial Day Village of Fayetteville Memorial Day Parade. It's going to be a full court press for us. And we just started our planning and our operations order for the Village of Manlius 4th of July celebration, which is also going to be a full court press for us. So I'll keep you posted on that progress. We completed our selection process for the members that will be selected for the new community unit that we created. And I'll be making that official announcement on or about July 1st. And then, of course, we want to say congratulations to Lynn Rabinski, who recently retired after 30 years of service in law enforcement, most of which she served in the town of Manlius. We had a nice little celebration for her. We wish her the best of luck. But I can tell you, we already miss her. It's a major loss for the town of Manlius Police Department. So we continue our search for somebody who can replace her. Has not been going well through the civil service process, but we're going to press forward, and I'll keep everybody posted on that. And then lastly, just a FYI, we've been seeing a lot of new activity at Green Lake State Park. And if you are aware or not aware, the New York State has stopped supporting park police. Park police units are far and few between, and Green Lakes is considered their premier park. So we're seeing a lot of activity, and as a result, we're pulling a lot of Manlius units into the park, whereas we really didn't have to do that before unless it was an emergency. So I'm collecting statistics on that just to keep the board aware. But Green Lake State Park gets extremely busy in the summertime. And the last thing I really want to do is pull resources from the town of Manlius to go into a state park because the governor decided not to support the police functions there. So I'll keep the board posted on that. Thank you.
Chief, what about I know that the state police usually sort of help when they need to, as well as the sheriffs. Will you have a report on their involvement in this?
I'll include that. It is true that the park police, I think, have been put under the authority, if you will, of the New York State Police. I still have yet to have conversations with the local state police commander on how that's going to occur. But I can tell you over the last several months, state police have not been available, and it's always been Manlius police that have been rolling into the park for emergencies. And we will always respond to an emergency when people are at need, but that is a huge state park. Like I said, it's their premier. They get a lot of camping, a lot of beach activity, picnicking, whatever the case may be. And I have not built a police department to support all of the calls that are generated through a state park that size. So once I collect my data, I intend on contacting the local state police commander and bringing it to that level. And like I said, I'm kind of at the early stages, but we've been seeing a lot of activity. So I'll keep the board posted.
And you know it's just going to pick up after Memorial Day when it opens up.
Yeah.
So,
And people have been pent up in their houses for so long.
And you have the campground as well.
Oh, I'm sure it's fully booked. I'm sure it's fully booked already. So.
Very good. Thanks, Chief. That's a good update for us. Okay, now we're going to move on to Ann, Town Manager. We have a couple items. Did you want to start out with the workers' comp or the 457?
Why don't I jump into workers' comp? That
Yeah.
should be pretty quick, and I know you probably want to introduce.
Yeah, I could do a summary on the 457.
So our workers' compensation program expires May 31st.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Ann. Yeah, come on over here.
Or get us a good idea.
Sit in my seat.
You want to sit in? Oh, you're going to do the podium. All
Sure,
right.
why not? So the town's workers' compensation policy expires May 31st.
Yeah.
Haler, Fryer, and Kuhn, who's the town's agent, went out for proposals. They contacted PERMA, of course, for renewal quote, and Comp Alliance. They did come back with quotes, both of those did. You have those in front of you. They each came back with a 2-year option, which is kind of nice. It's nice to have some continuity in a plan over a couple of years. I would recommend at this point that we do continue with PERMA. You'll see their 2-year option is significantly lower. There is also a year 2 option if our losses are below 50%. So that's also something that we can work with our employees on to try to get our losses down. Work with Rob and the chief. That's predominantly where we have those losses. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, it was quite a meeting with Jim because we haven't gone that way in a long time.
Right.
And to go that way for 2 years in a row, I mean, I think that's a great
And a
deal.
significant decrease.
Oh,
which was
absolutely,
nice,
yeah.
so
I mean, we went from
we're-
199, which will be expiring, 199,000, and the 2-year plan will go to 161,000 for both years. So that's, so, and it could go to 154 if we keep that losses under 50%. So those are really.
Congratulations for your safety program.
Yeah. And Ann, of course, works really hard with those, with PERMA and COMP and Hiller Franklin. Thank you, Ann, for your input on that and your work.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, we sometimes put their feet to the fire and, you know, they get it done. So, all right, as far, let's discuss the, yes.
We do need a
Motion to approve,
renew.
yeah, to accept that, because that comes in renewal on,
June 1st?
June 1st, right. So I'm sorry, thank you, Ann. So we'll need a motion for that.
Yes, absolutely, we're going to stay with PERMA.
PERMA and the 2-year plan.
Right, the 2-year program.
Yep.
Workers' compensation.
Yeah.
Are you making that
Yes.
motion then? Okay,
Yes.
second, okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, very good. Thank you, board. And again, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Heather Frank Kuhn, for all your independent work that you do for us. All right, next is the 457. I know I've sent emails out to you, and we have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets.
Will you stop sending them at midnight?
Well, it wasn't midnight, but I told you it'd be last night.
Pretty close.
But we, I did the spreadsheet, and then I did a summary of the spreadsheet, and then I did a summary of my summary of the spreadsheet.
And then I called him and he summarized the summary of the summary.
What it boils down to, and then we do have our current representative here with us, Dan Jeffrey, who has been working, he is, other than the New York State plan, he could provide service for all the 6 programs that were presented to us. And they were, just for the record, we had Emeritus, Empower, Lincoln, the New York State 457 Plan Group, AXA/Equitable. And I'd like to sort of focus on my summary of the spreadsheet. If we, and I know Elaine, we talked about this, if we were looking for the least expensive plan, the New York State plan would be the way to go. But the problem we run into is really the service that we've been able to get provided by Dan and his group, only because the representative for the state manages 10 counties. His territory consists of 40 state agencies and over 100 local municipalities, and I believe he's located out of Utica. So, you know, I just don't feel we would get the same representation. If you look at all the plans, as you can see, the fees are, you know, they're standard fees between the vendor and between, you know, as far as the record keeping and the advisor's compensation. It's all standard. I know, Caitlin, you and I are in the business. Those are pretty much right in the ballpark with everything we see. We looked at the stable fund value, our stable value fund, or how do we pronounce that? And there's really a small percentage in that it's geared more for adding to a portfolio than just using that alone as an investment for retirement. So although it did look like that Lincoln, the one plan there, the 253D, I think it is, Z53D, I'm sorry, that was at 2.1 the end of December, and through June of this year, I believe, it's June 31st, June 30th, sorry, got an extra day there, it's 2%. So I mean, I know we've talked about it. If you have any questions, I mean, I would consider the fact that Lincoln has done well with their portfolios. I'm using them. I know, you know, you saw how many people are using them between the highway, the police, and town hall. And I think that they're so close in nature that we should just stay with Lincoln. That's my recommendation, but you guys may have questions and maybe any concerns. And again, if you have any questions that I can't answer, I do have my specialist here, Dan, to help answer that. So
I have a quick question.
yes,
The cyber warranty.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't picked that out before I saw your summary. Can you share a little bit more about? It's striking that, of course, the New York State piece, but I would love to hear from Dan a little
yeah,
bit more
Dan,
about
could you give a little, you can go right up here at the podium if you'd like. Even if you don't like it, it'd be helpful.
Spot on my shirt.
And Dan, by the way, he on a regular basis, he has given presentations to the PBA Highway. He's been over to your place a few times. He's in direct contact with any of the employees who have questions that are in the plan. So he's always readily available. So very familiar with getting these questions.
Yeah, so cyber warranty is actually kind of a new awareness for all of us. And one of the vendors kind of made it a point in power.
Yep.
Said, hey, this is something, and this is something. And so I honestly had not heard of it before Empower brought it to my attention. I went back to all the other vendors. Maybe you saw in one of the summaries, Ameritas does it on a case-by-case basis. Lincoln has it built in but doesn't advertise it as such.
Okay.
But Empower, to their credit, made it more of a marketing piece. But what they'll do, what has happened in the past is nothing's bulletproof anymore. As
Right.
we know. And so what Empower does is put it in writing that if someone's account, an employee related to the plan, the 457 plan under their record keeping gets breached, they will make the participants whole. I have it in writing that Lincoln will do the same thing. They just don't have a marketing piece on it.
Oh,
I
okay.
have it in writing from Emeritus that they'll do it on a case-by-case basis, but they don't have a marketing piece for it.
Okay.
I do think it's a really important thing to address because it's, again, we're all at risk. I had a client speak to me about not putting their social security number on a form, and I said, you're welcome to do that, but everybody has your social security number because everything's been breached.
Right.
But for us as fiduciaries, which is my role as a CFP and as a member of the investment committee and that type of thing, we want to make sure that, heaven forbid it happens, that people are protected, because for a lot of people, for most of the people I deal with, this is the biggest single asset they have other than their home.
Do you want to define fiduciary for everybody who might not? know?
Certified financial planner.
Well, that
Yeah,
would be I'm a
helpful.
CFP and I'm a CRPC and I'm a CPFA.
Can you say what those stand for?
Yeah.
Come on.
I know what they stand for.
Certified financial planner is a designation. You need a 4-year degree. You need to take 6 modules and you have to sit for a 2-day test. It's pretty arduous to get. I've had it since 2012. I do continuing education. I have to have 30 hours plus 2 hours of ethics every 2 years. CRPC, I have to, couples onto the CFP. They don't make you do extra if you have a CFP, but that's a chartered retirement plan counselor. Take an exam to do that. And I just recently passed my certified fiduciary plan advisor, which is a designation for financial plan, or excuse me, for retirement plans. Right. All those things said, I do that because I want to be keen on my game and I want my clients to be well served. Back to what a fiduciary is. My requirement as the ethics go of CFP, before this became, and Caitlin, you'll know this, and Ed, you'll know this, the industry's being pushed to a standard, which I think is great. I mean, because there's good people in every business and there's some not so great characters. But that being said, a fiduciary standard holds me that I have to put my client's best interest first. And I think for the record, I'll say that Mr. Theobald's comment, if the only decision for this committee is the lowest cost, then you should go with the New York State deferred comp plan. Because by far it is the lowest cost. But for all the things you just asked about my credentials and my commitment to my clients and the town employees, I think they deserve the services that my team brings, and I'm dedicated to making sure that people meet their retirement goals. So,
And as an independent broker.
I'm an independent
You
advisor.
represent the employees, you don't represent the company. You
I don't
work-
represent
yeah.
any of those companies.
Right, but you
and-
you have the
and-
availability to use their services and their funds.
Well, I can bring everybody to you, and I could, if you had a private company, I could bring you a nationwide plan, but in the New York State Deferred Comp Plan,
Right,
Nationwide is
right.
the only vendor.
Yep.
And they only have, and you can look at it both ways, but they only have salaried enrollers for their service model. And again, selfish plug, but I live right here in the town.
Yeah.
I grew up here, and Mr. Cushing's seen me at the highway department. Some of the folks in the town have seen me here. I've been in a police barracks at 8 o'clock at night because that's when the night shift could see me to enroll. And it's all online, they can do it themselves, but people want to deal, I've found people want to deal with people.
Yep.
And I take my job really serious, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to present to you. And hopefully I answered your question about fiduciary.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Yep,
for me?
John.
Do we have like a rough estimate? I know this is gonna be hard. Like, what's with the fee structure? What's the real cost to our employees compared to the state? Like, are
Well,
we talk like?
You know, it's interesting, I mean,
Well,
I look at my return on my investment, and some people look at the return of their investment, but I'm more concerned with the management of it, of those funds. I like to see these fees are, like I said, they're on board with all, across the
If I
financial.
might address that.
But
Mr.
go
Deere,
ahead.
If you look in the presentation, again, the New York State plan is the low-cost option. And when I say low cost, the maximum they'll charge a participant per year is $60.
Right.
If, and my fees in the plans, the 4 plans that I brought to the table, well, Ameritas, Empower, and Lincoln, and I could get equitable, but they
We don't want it.
Should I say that in public record?
Off the record.
My fee is, the fees baked into the plan, which compensate me and also compensate the record keeper, are a little less than 0.5%. And so it depends on how much. If you have $1,000 in the plan, it costs you $50.
Yeah.
About. If you have 100,000 in the plan, it costs you about $350.
So it's like a management fee,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
assets under management, whatever the percentage.
But it's not. I mean, we're not talking.
It's
We're
not
not talking
astronomical.
each
The state is $60. We're talking maybe, some of our employees may be paying $500, but they're getting all the benefits
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
hands-on management, meeting you where you are. I'm assuming you're fairly available if people have questions.
I think I am.
There's
Fantastic.
also the expense ratios of the funds
Right.
themselves.
Yep.
And those are comparable. We did
Right.
look at those.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
I was curious about, because there's like the service model, and then there's the differences between the expense ratios of the mutual funds themselves. The New York State plan, I'm assuming, is like as cheap as you could possibly
yeah.
be.
Yeah, mostly they're T-row price target dates.
Yes, okay.
Oh, is
There's
that-
not a lot of selection.
I
in there.
wouldn't, yeah, that's what I would have expected.
And target dates.
No, I don't like
Right.
But to that end, and for the committee, for the town boards, you'll see that there's different crediting rates to that stable value. And-
Yes.
And to Caitlin's, excuse me.
Yeah, you're right.
Counselor
Is it
Grizzly.
okay if I-
No, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
we've known each other for like 5 minutes now.
You can call me Dan.
Sounds good.
You can call me a lot of things, Dan. In order to, all of them have a minimum amount they need to make, whether it's Lincoln or Empower or Equitable or Ameritas.
Yeah.
And what you see, Ameritas is the best example is, what you'll note is the stable value, they can make it a higher stable value, because that was one of the things that was presented, that some of the folks wanted a higher stable. Everybody else is gonna pay for it in higher internal.
'cause
Yeah,
it's
right,
with the
and
guarantees.
including expense ratios could be
But
added.
all,
Yeah.
and that said, we have low-cost passive investments, we have actively managed, I'll use American funds in there. Great fund family, they cost more.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna say completely, but you kinda get what you pay for.
Right.
Yeah.
And there, you have there's different options. Just looking at the Lincoln, you can choose, and certainly, I mean, I imagine that you're advising people on this. They could pick more of an index fund, and then they're saving on the expense ratio. If they choose to go with something that's actively managed, then they make that decision based on the funds that they're selecting.
So we have a drive it for you, kind of like there's target date funds, there's risk-based funds, and then there's a target risk-based model, which is the qualified deferred investment.
But there's not an overwhelming number of choices. There's a good solid number.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
Yeah, you don't want too many.
That's right. It's proven if you have too many choices, it causes paralysis.
Yeah, good point.
And that, again, hopefully the value add for me is that when people get stuck there. Well, I just met with an employee this morning, and she called me in the fall when she hired on, and we talked again today, and she had signed herself in, but hadn't done anything further. We did a Zoom and we took her through, and actually, quite honestly, Caitlin, I put her in a target date fund because she was going to have about $5.
Yeah, target date fund is definitely appropriate, especially for younger people or people who are just starting to participate. I think that they're used, to have that be the only option indiscriminately would be inappropriate.
And speaking of younger investors, Dan, you brought to us Roth, which
that's true.
We didn't have that initially.
The prior plan did not offer Roth, and I'm a big advocate for Roth, especially for younger folks, whatever their stage in life. But if they're not making a lot of money and they're on the early stage, but as much as in the plans you can afford to do.
And a Roth provision would be something that would allow, if you're familiar with a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA is taxed at the time that you put it in, and it grows tax-free. Clients, when they're retired, love their tax-free distributions from their Roth, and your lower income earning years, highly advantageous. So to have a Roth provision inside of a retirement plan is helpful.
If you're making enough where you really need the tax deduction, then you go with the regular traditional.
Okay,
But the Roth is good for if they're not making that much, it's good to just plow it in there and then take it out tax-free, basically.
So what I'm understanding is that the plan that we're currently on to extend that would basically put, I don't want to be rude, but like financial nerds like you guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Fighting on behalf of our employees to make sure they're getting the best product rather than just giving our employees the cheapest product.
Right.
So as someone who has had benefits from a job that I had no idea how to use at a young age, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So now are you, sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
Lynn.
Well, my only question was, with our employees that are taking advantage of this program, have they, do they know that we've been out to bid? Do they know we're talking about this?
I think
have they been
we've,
notified?
we sent the regular email and notified everyone that we had to do this.
Okay.
But I can add, I met with the TBA independently and shared a similar spreadsheet to the one I shared with the supervisor. Actually, it was the same one, and went through all the choices. And by the way, I told them the same thing. If the drive is the lowest cost, I mean, it's just true.
Yeah, right.
You get what you pay for when you're just evaluating the fees.
And in that meeting, I was challenged, well, what if I don't use you? Then you pay more, because it's people's prerogative. And some people do and some people don't, but I'm here to serve I'm here to serve my clients, and the town's my client, but the employees of the town are the ones that drive the 457. And for those who choose to work with me, I think overall I've done a decent job. And for those that, again, I'm reachable and I'm accessible, and most of the police officers have my cell phone number and they call me when they want.
Now, how is enrollment in the town? What percentage of our employees have enrolled and are participating?
It's interesting because we've got, when I took over the plan, it was almost all police.
Yeah, right.
We have enrolled relatively small amount in the town offices, but we have much, percentage-wise, it looks great, but it's still pretty small.
Yeah.
And with Mr. Cushing's help and Ann Oot's help and supervisors and a commitment from the board, I go to PBA meetings. I just set up shop in the highway department, and Ann Oot set up the benefits fair. We've done those over a couple of times. COVID didn't make that possible, but we've increased participation. Peer-to-peer, it's still kind of low, but it's a deferred comp 457 plan. There's no employer money in it, and so I'm actually pleased because, and again, give credit to the police, their involvement with some of the support of their managerial, their officers and stuff. They promoted that, and so The police have got about an 80% participation.
Yeah.
The town's got, the offices here, maybe 10%.
I gotta work on it more.
Department, I guess, we're 30 or 40%.
You guys are doing good.
So of the plans that you included, is there one that you thought was the most advantageous for the town of the different platforms that you presented to us?
I've vetted them all. I don't think Ameritas is competitive enough.
Right.
I think they're designed for the smaller employer, in my opinion. I tend to agree with the supervisor in the fact that Lincoln, although it has some quirks with it, it's not perfect, but we have a decent working relationship. We have a dedicated service person named Mary Novak. You might have seen her on a communication I sent to the supervisor. And again,
And this is which one you're referring to now?
the Z35D.
The one that's highlighted there?
Yeah, okay.
It's, again, back to nothing's perfect, but and that one too has a lower internal expense. When you saw the share, the fee on the LY.
Yeah.
They increased the internal expense on the fee, plan, internal investments.
Okay.
To make the record keeper fee lower.
Yeah, yeah.
I know I'm talking jargon, sorry about that.
No.
Well, the other interesting thing, and when I was talking with Sarah, Empower, of course, we have credit union Empower, but it's no relation to that.
Yeah, no relation.
In fact, they used to be.
Different.
They've changed hands so many times. They were
Well, they used to
MFS
sound
at
like
one
a
time.
champagne.
What's that?
They were Great West.
Yeah, they were
That's a dumb
Great
name,
West.
too.
They were MFS. They were Hartford.
Wow.
And now they're Mass Mutual is taking.
Well, they bought Mass.
They bought Mass Mutual. In fact, I know the wholesaler there went to Lourdes Camp about 80 years ago with him.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he doesn't remember me.
But Empower Federal Credit Union has no relation at all.
That's
Empower,
Right.
the retirement services is first or second largest in the United
Yeah.
States with it for assets under management. They're ginormous. And if that, I guess my choices would be to answer the question.
Yeah.
Lincoln's the path of least resistance, least disruption, because if you move the plan, you're gonna have blackouts and.
I don't want to deal with that.
And so I think the highlighted plan from Lincoln is probably.
What? No, I know, I just don't, I mean, it's
No.
gonna make, we'd have to
Believe
re-enroll
me,
everybody.
I know what it's, yeah, we know.
And
what it's
people
like.
might want to transfer or roll over their
Oh, yeah,
old,
that's
it would be
always
a
it.
nightmare
Yeah, it's
for
not
our
fair.
employees.
It's not fair.
Yeah. And then the blackout days where you
Make
can't.
a motion to accept
Thank you.
Yeah, let's get there, let's get there, we can do it.
Thank you, Sarah. How you doing over there? How you all right? I mean, I know you're, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, all right.
Can I leave the podium?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Dan.
And thank you so much, Caitlin.
Well, overall, our participants have been happy
Oh, yeah,
with the
yeah.
performance of Lincoln.
Well.
We do know.
Market's
there
done well, that
are-
helps.
Well, yes,
Sure
but, there
Yes, it
was one individual I know that was concerned about the fees
Mhm.
and was suggesting, the New York State
Mhm.
plan.
Yeah, we
No,
addressed
and
that.
that's actually part of why
Yeah.
I think we had this long, view in, and why it was so helpful, I think, to have that spreadsheet with
Yeah.
the comparison,
Yeah.
for that reason.
And that the individual is retired, so he's not participating.
He
He's-
could choose to roll his money out
could.
into a
Yeah.
different, he's not required. The employees here, if they want to participate in payroll deducted participation
Yeah.
in the defined contribution plan that's offered through the 457, they can only do it through the one that we offer. But anyone who's retired is welcome to move those assets
Yeah,
out.
and on top of that, he was concerned with the stable value, which actually has been very competitive, even with the adjusted fees, you know.
Yeah.
but-
Interest rates are so
overall-
low, you're never gonna
overall,
get
the
high enough on
performance
that.
is-
Oh, yeah, and that's the other good thing, Dan, if there's a fund that, maybe there's a change in management or a management strategy, which the company doesn't agree with, they'll take that fund out and bring a different one in to be comparable to it. So Dan will meet with us, and we'll sit down with Dan, and he'll explain it to us so that we can provide that information to the employees. So, those are also helpful additives to.
One thing I'd be very interested in pursuing is a discussion on how we as the board might be able to support enrollment in education and get more employees participating, because even the ones who we know are retiring now, all of the employees would be better served if we were helping them to understand exactly what this is and the benefits. And tax-wise, investment-wise, retirement-wise.
And I think the benefit's fair. We're
Yeah.
gonna probably heat that up again. I think, Sarah, you and I talked about it, and with Kay, and so I think that helps. Anything we can do to promote it, I agree with you. Kay.
I'll give that some thought, how we might help like the highway department get some more enrollment, because it's, do you ever, do 457s work the same way as 401ks with opt-out provisions rather than opt-in?
I've not seen that because it's no, but I will tell you that there's an auto increase feature built into the Lincoln plan, and that's an opt-out. For clarification, if someone signs in and says, I'm gonna put 5% away, it's already checked that they're gonna increase it by 1% every year. And if they don't uncheck it, it'll automatically increase their contribution by 1% every year till you get to 12%, which is where people should be anyway.
I'd be interested if you were able to dig into that to see if that was something that we could add to the plan documents, because that would certainly increase participation if people had to opt out rather than opt in, and then they would go into the target date fund. So I would be interested if you could please share that information with us.
For sure.
But in the meantime, I'd be happy to make a motion.
And then too, this, like, we're required to rebid this
Every 5 years, yep.
But say we have issues or want to change, could we do it before that? Or is it more, this is 5 years?
I think, yes, go ahead, Dan.
An asterisk on it, you can, but the stable value fund, and one of the reasons that rate is reasonably good in this market. And again, it's all reasonable, right? But a 2% rate, that's extended through June 30th. It may change, and it does change ongoingly. But they gave us a lock for a 5-year.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll find out what the lock is moving forward. We got it extended for now. I'll find out what it is. But if you try to move the plan,
You might
you have
lose
that
it.
5-year contract.
Dan, if it locks in and actually rates go up, it will go up
It
accordingly.
has the ability to go up. It can never go below 1.
Okay,
But
good.
it has the ability to go up, and it does go up. Well, it hasn't gone up because interest rates have
Yeah, I
gone up.
know, yeah.
But that would be my one caution. If you were unhappy and decided to move the plan prior to the 5 years.
Okay.
It could be a negative impact on stable value. Not that you can't get out of it, but it's phased out.
Yeah, so it's not like an annuity where you have like,
Sales charges.
Well, it
Yeah.
is a group annuity contract.
Well, yeah,
But there's
they're
no
all-
CDSC.
They're all
Okay.
like that, yeah.
CDSC is contingent deferred sales charge for
I knew
anyone
it
who was
was
very
here.
good.
you were gonna
Yeah,
come
seeing
in.
that my first time.
Yeah.
So this is basically like a 5-year.
Yeah.
commitment.
Are you seconding?
Who?
I guess
You made the motion?
I was halfway through the motion.
Sarah made the motion,
Sarah
you're
made the
seconding it?
motion.
She made the motion.
I started making the motion
All
and then
right.
I stopped making the motion.
Well, you,
I'll make a motion to adopt the plan as presented with Best Times Financial and maintaining the current plan with Lincoln Financial.
very good. And who had the second?
I'll second.
Karen? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Very good. Excellent. Boy.
It's like the one time a year I get to use my
I know.
skill set. Please, quite enjoy it. I am a financial advisor. I don't know if
Yeah.
I mentioned that. Yeah, I know. Shocking.
Oh,
new
you didn't know
information.
that?
It's our
Never comes
show.
up.
All right,
It's an
so
inside joke that's not really.
I'm
inside.
sure. I get it. Been there.
You know the ropes.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the committee report, which I believe would be Sustainable Manlius.
Oh
I
my
guess that would be you,
gosh,
Caitlin.
I'm talking quite a bit tonight. Okay, so Sustainable Manlius, as some of you might remember, was awarded a $5,000 grant earlier this year, and we received that grant as a result of becoming a clean energy community through the eyes of NYSERDA.
Right.
And we have been trying to figure out the most appropriate way to spend that money. And we met today and made a decision that we would like to spend that money on supporting our upcoming initiatives. So we've got 2 community campaigns which follow the bouncing ball because it's extremely confusing. NYSERDA, through the Clean Energy Communities program, as I've mentioned before, Manoa won $100,000 for this just a few years ago. And because they were one of the first ones to do it. And, you know, hats off to the mayor for his pursuit of that so quickly. We got $5,000 for achieving the same thing, but they also restructured the program, allowing you to pursue other routes so that you could get more money from this initiative. So rather than just doing 4 items and then getting what Manoa got, which was $100,000, we can take all these subsequent steps to continue moving forward as it relates to environmental sustainability to get up to $100,000.
Oh, wow.
So we got $5,000 for doing the one thing, and we've got 2 community campaigns that we received approval from NYSERDA. One for, and we voted on these things previously, but just to bring everyone back up to speed.
Oh, okay, good.
On one for community solar, where we opted to partner with Omni Renewables. I think John made those motions after I was in the car accident and couldn't attend. And then we also voted to partner with Heat Smart CNY on a Heat Smart, which would be heat pumps and energy efficiency. So if we enroll 10 people in community solar, we get $5,000 for that. And if we enroll 10 people in the Heat Smart campaign, we get another $5,000. So we decided to use the $5,000 we already got to promote the efforts of these next 2 initiatives, as well as the different things that Sustainable Manlius is doing, like Earth Fest and you know, whatever other sustainability.
That's the bouncing ball you just said.
Yes. So I actually wanted to. I just decided this at 5 o'clock. It was why I was rushing in the door. I was on the call with them as I was pulling into the parking lot. I wanted to make a motion, if that's okay, that we spend the $5,000 grant that we already received on supporting our community campaigns, as well as general marketing for Sustainable Manlius.
With the idea that it will generate more
grants.
Yeah. And we would have to use that money to get more grant money?
I mean, it's actually set up that way. They are trying to, that's how they're trying, because I thought, is that disingenuous? No, and they're like, no, they actually want you to do it that way.
Fully in favor of this. I think we just need to have it written down and have some, have the goals like lined up and attached. So the impact that you want.
It's due next week.
Yeah. Oh.
We had requested an extension, but we haven't received that extension yet.
They just need to know what we're spending the $5,000. Yeah.
So the idea was to support the ongoing efforts of the.
And that qualifies?
Yeah.
Are we looking at the one right now or both of them?
No,
the
just
solar
one.
and the.
Both have been approved, and we're planning to launch both of those at the end of June.
If that would include helping people to connect to energy audits.
Yep.
So basically we had a goal around the number of energy audits like in the town.
Energy audits is through Heat Smart.
Yeah.
Energy efficiency is
I think that makes a lot of sense because you want people on the ground and the, you know, however you maximize, but having some, just putting some target numbers in there.
If we get 10 people to sign up for each, that technically meets the requirements of, I mean, we'll of course pursue more.
So I think compliance and then like what's the beyond compliance target that we want to try to meet for ourselves.
How do you do that?
You don't have to tell them, but like for us to, you know, to have it.
How do you get them to sign up?
So with Heat Smart, they have their own, because they're grant funded by NYSERDA, and they have like a director locally. Her name is Lindsay Spear, and that's out of Alliance for a Green Economy.
So they do their own marketing?
They have their own mechanism, and I will probably help to, like I'll plan an event or a few events, and we'll get people to come. The Fable Libraries offered to allow us to come do presentations there. I'll probably hit up the other libraries. We'll probably do some Zoom webinars, and people will sign up either through the Heat Smart CNY portal, like through their online mechanism, or through Omni Renewables through their mechanism.
So here, my question, that sounds amazing and awesome, and they're great. So I know that we have certain goals within Sustainable Manlius to reach, you know, at different markers. So I think being able to say, here are I think basically just having it written out. So if you have a plan that you're sharing with them, will you share that with us?
Yeah. We'll have to finish. We'll have to get that document written and submitted next week.
Yeah. So that I would be in favor of doing that, as long as we have all of that written down so we know the goals,
Well-
because $5,000 just without the plan,
Maybe we can make a motion with,
pending
pending that you're gonna
That
put
plan.
those things together.
So the $5,000
Would we be able to
will
do
say
that?
that we're gonna be spending it on like a pop-up banner. The community campaigns are different. The goals that we have for how many people we sign up with the community campaigns, we submitted the scoping document already and received approval from NYSERDA for those programs. But within the next couple days, the marketing to support that won't include goals for those campaigns themselves. Because this is just a grant proposal for marketing information. So we'll spend this much on Facebook ads, we'll spend this much on, like, we can get you that information, it's just completely outside the scope of this grant.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I think so. It just sounds like the way it's being presented to the community is we got this grant because we have these goals where we want to be a climate smart community, and so I'm just trying to make sure that if I'm a random person being like, what are we got our $5,000 grant, what's its impact in our community? We said we're committed to doing all this stuff, we're doing all this stuff, just how does it line up, and just sharing that on a one pager or whatever it is.
Is it required that we need to pass a thing?
Yeah, do you have to, what do you have to
No,
share
it's
with
not
them?
required, but we thought it would be helpful if we were able to submit a resolution with our grant application that the town board was in favor of spending the $5,000 to support these next two community campaigns.
I could say that generally.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
all,
really
that's
need
all
a-
this is.
we
The
need a
community
resolution for
campaigns,
that.
the community campaign scoping documents that we already submitted to NYSERDA that outlined the goals of those campaigns was approved, and I'd be happy to share those with you.
Why don't we do this? Pass a resolution
Okay.
that authorizes Caitlin, supervisor, or whoever,
Yeah.
write a letter of support, or to write a letter saying that we support the application, or whatever language you think makes the most sense. And the board would pass a resolution supporting this, and then documenting that to the agency that you want to submit it to.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Okay.
There you go.
Make that motion.
okay.
Makes perfect sense. So-
Mr.
You're gonna
Supervisor,
make
I'd
a
like to make a motion to, words immediately fell out of my brain. I'd like to make a motion to have a letter written in support of the
Application.
the grant application be for funding, marketing for the upcoming community campaigns related to the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program.
So
Okay.
it would be a letter on behalf of the town board by the supervisor
Uh-huh.
to
Sup-
support
The
the
grant
application.
application to be used for marketing for Sustainable Manlius and the community campaigns through NYSERDA. Is that
Perfect.
better?
We have this recorded, so that helps.
So someone can watch it back.
All right, so we'll need a second for that. Okay,
I'll
we'll need a
second.
second.
Thank you,
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Opposed?
Does that accomplish what you want?
Does that work?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
Very good.
I thought
Karen.
that would be easier than it was.
We always think that.
Yeah.
It needs to be done by the end of this week, you said?
Next week.
Next week, yeah.
We had requested
Yeah,
more time last week, but we haven't received back word that it was extended. So we want to get it in because we just didn't know what we were going to do with the money. We had this idea and that idea and this idea and that idea, and I didn't want to just make a decision, but we arrived today at a conclusion that was, I thought, really was what we wanted to do.
yeah, okay, all right. I can see why it was not totally clear with those emails, what
Yeah.
we were doing.
Yeah, because it was we didn't know what we were doing.
It was really crazy.
I felt
so-
bad for Amanda because I was
Because she was,
moving.
I could tell by her emails, it's getting tenser.
She started using bold and
Yeah.
caps and underline.
Right.
Yeah.
Then when she said, "Oh, just call them," I go, "Nah, we're good." So, all right. And now economic development is next. You have
Yeah,
something on that?
that's also me, unfortunately. Karen and I have been trying to get a meeting with one another to discuss economic development, but we both needed to reschedule and we haven't found a time that's worked. But we should touch base and get something for next week. But I've been working with the Chamber of Commerce, of which I also serve on the board, and the FM Education Foundation to put together a co-sponsored dining week this October to support the FM Education Foundation's efforts and to support our local community's economy. So we're planning right now, though it's still in the works, to spread that dining week out over actually the whole month of October, to pick one night a week for the whole month and feature different restaurants in Fayetteville and Manlius, and to also support other businesses outside the scope of dining. So they might be promotional sponsors in one capacity, or they might contribute some cool stuff to a gift basket that people might win if they participate in all 5 of the nights, and really trying to make this a community building exercise. And so I wanted to share that with everyone because I've been working on that quite a bit, and I'm hoping to get looped in with Karen so that she and I can work on that together. And then I'll also be working with the northern part of the town so that they're not left out of this effort, because of course it's just FM focused. So I'm working with the chamber to identify something similar that we might be able to do in Manoa and in the northern part of the town to support a different organization on that side of things.
Okay. Excellent.
My concern is there's so many employers looking for employees. Everywhere you go, they just can't continue their businesses because there's no one to work.
Yeah.
And they're way behind. It's terrible.
It's gonna take a while to catch up.
Absolutely
That's
awful.
So this is a great segue to say, when we were meeting with the tree commission, Michael reminded all of us about the CNY Works program that the Onondaga County is sponsoring. So we can, Rob, I don't know if you still have a posting available for summer, but for example, there are a whole registered list of summer folks who are young people who are looking for work and are going to be paid by the county, but need their partners in the community. So I don't think that they have very many municipal partners, but if we were looking for within recreation some more staff, and if we were looking within highway, we can connect with the program, and they can say, the key issue for a lot of places in the suburbs is of course that there are kids who are in, young people who are in every part of the county. Many kids are in the city, and it's about transportation issues for a lot of kids, but we very well could have someone who meets the income threshold in our community who's looking for work. So that's really something that we can remind everybody about. We can put a post about it so that if you're an employer in the community and you're looking for folks, you can hire, but also just for us, if you're open to it. Rob, I don't know if you still have that posting available.
Actually, I've already replaced one. I've got another one actually who's interested in doing it right now. So
Okay, cool.
I'm hoping here in the next 2 weeks we'll have that wrapped up.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it's been a struggle to just get someone help.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
We're lucky with the recreation.
I've talked to a lot of our vendors, and a lot of our vendors are having problems getting
terrible.
people to drive truck.
Yeah, and we talked about that issue.
I know they have issue with the trash and brush.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It's been, a lot of people not coming back to work or not hiring.
It's terrible.
All right, very
All
good.
over.
I just
All
have two
over the
quick
town.
things. I know I wasn't gonna do anything else after that 4:57, but I thought a couple of softballs here. I wanted to echo the chief's congratulations to Lynn Rubinski on behalf of the board and her retirement after 30 years. We are gonna miss her. I was over there at a good turnout, I didn't go anywhere near the cake, but it was tempting, so. The other thing, if you recall, we had that birthday for Tony Pershio when he turned 100, and it was freezing weather, and then we canceled when we were gonna plant the tree at Wellwood, that was the oak tree that was donated by Cross Creek Nursery. And so we got over there last Friday, it was 92 degrees. But anyway, so Superintendent Tice sent me a nice thank you letter today that we supported and helped Tony with, he was there 100 and he doesn't look 100. I sort of made it an unofficial Arbor Day celebration on behalf of the board, even though we weren't there. And I have no proclamation, but I did it anyway.
Why not? Go
So,
for it. It works.
But it was a nice little turnout, and I don't know if you saw it in the pictures that Lynn Kay posted that on Facebook. So it was a nice thing to do again.
Very nice.
Yeah, and he's an amazing man. So that's all I have, and so we need a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed? Carried. Very good.
Now
Thank
we
you.
all immediately hang up and disappear.
Yeah, right.